Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, and we're at episode number 1589. And there's been some other industry news that I wanted to touch on because it does have to do with active production of Star Wars projects, and it's kind of fascinating in its own right since we've talked from time to time about Lucasfilm and ramping up production capacity on certain things. ILM just announced that they are starting a new division of the company, ILM TV, and they're getting back into television, streaming and episodic. Now, I'm saying getting back into television because once upon a time they were involved with a particular passion project of George Lucas's, that of course being the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. They were doing all the special effects for that seminal TV series and bringing, as they defined it, cinematic quality to the visual effects of the television situation. And so they don't call it a television situation, but I think you know what I mean. Anyway, so they haven't done anything really in the way of TV, and so now it's time to get back into it again, apparently, and they already have their first two projects lined up. Surprise, surprise, one of them is going to be The Mandalorian, the Star Wars live-action TV series that is being produced for the Disney streaming service that will be coming out in the latter half of next year. They're also lined up to take over the visual effects for the Krypton series, which is a Superman prequel thing happening over on Sci-Fi, and I'm saying taking over because they are picking it up for Season 2. Now, there are other companies already in the market that specialize in visual effects for episodic and streaming television. Among them, COSA or COSA, depending on where you put the emphasis there, COSA, small o, and Zoic, which does many of the effects for the CW superhero shows, and also Spin VFX as well. So, those outfits are doing, everything that you see that's very special effects heavy on TV, I would say. And particularly the COSA outfit, they seem to be the group that's going to potentially suffer the most out of this because they're doing the work for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They've done stuff for Guardians of the Galaxy and so on and so forth. They've actually worked with Bad Robot as well, according to their website. So it seems like those situations are going to be the ones that move away from a studio like COSA over to Industrial Light and Magic as they get their machine up and running. Those seem to be the prime opportunities. And, because ILM was acquired by Disney as part of the deal with Lucasfilm, it's actually kind of surprising that this hasn't happened sooner, to be honest with you. It has been 6 years since the deal was official, but hey, no time like the present, right? So this is essentially a way for Disney to kind of keep its own ecosystem in place. I mean, they've got one side of the business spending money to produce these things, and another side of the business is actually making the money. So it ends up being a very smart economic decision for Disney to be able to do this sort of thing, and very lucky that they have such a quality outfit as ILM in their portfolio already to do this stuff. And so now I guess the question becomes, how long is it going to be before they, really ramp this up and get more of their properties to be working with ILM? Although, as it is these days, if you actually sit through the credits for movies and whatnot, and you go through all 1,200 people or so that are listed there, you'll notice that it's usually not one outfit, but it's a lot of different visual effects outfits that are called in to handle visual effects for a cinematic situation. And so, ILM has worked on Marvel movies, for example, but they're not the only ones. I guess one of the big ones, of course, that you've heard about mentioned on here from time to time is Lola VFX, which has been the one that did the digital de-aging of Michael Douglas and Robert Downey Jr., for example, in various Marvel movies, and they do a fantastic job with that stuff. But ILM's capacity, just because they aren't able to take care of all the effects on a movie doesn't necessarily mean that that's, a slight on ILM or anything like that. Quite the opposite. It's just, the nature of the business. But now that they are opening a new TV division, well, that certainly seems to bode well for their capacity and their interest in building that capacity and that infrastructure too. Does it mean that we're actually going to see potentially more infrastructure being built on the cinematic side of things? I don't think so. Not yet, at least, and certainly not for the next year or two. I mean, at this point right now, it seems like based on the slate of movies that is on tap for Star Wars in general, there's not necessarily a reason for them to be building the infrastructure, and then it just depends on how badly they're chasing after new business. And it seems like new business kind of comes to them just as it is, and it's not like there's a raft of new competitors that are fighting in space for it or anything like that. At least not that we're hearing about. Maybe if you're actually deeply enmeshed in the visual effects market, you're hearing about that a little bit more. But I think for now, at least, just because, also dovetailing with this, the whole conversation that we had about the Boba Fett movie and about it being, put on indefinite, if not permanent hold, and the focus being very strongly on the Mandalorian TV show, and the fact that Disney's streaming service is going to have to add more content and more content and more content. It's just going to have to do that. I mean, The Mandalorian and Clone Wars is not going to be enough. We know that there's supposed to be a couple of Marvel TV series as well that are hitting this streaming service, but it seems like really the focus is going to be very strongly on the television, the streaming television side of the house for the near future. And I'm curious to know what you think about that. Do you think that you would like to see more Star Wars live-action episodic television? Would you like to see them create multiple series and focus on that? Or would you like them to ramp up their infrastructure on the cinematic side of things and try to, get to the point where they can be making 2 or 3 or 4 movies a year as Marvel does right now? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Please do share them wherever it is you happen to be checking out this episode of the show. And that is going to do it for this episode of the show. Thank you so much for joining me for it, and I hope you will subscribe to the show if you're not subscribed already. I hope you'll also consider supporting this daily dose of Star Wars joy by signing up at patreon.com/SW7X7. For now, though, it just remains for me to say, may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2018 Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.